Hello, Tim. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well, John. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks for joining us on our 24-hour live stream the other week, too. A breath of fresh air as always.
Well, I appreciate you having me there, and it was a lot of fun. I bet you were exhausted.
I was a little bit tired after the event, I will admit, just a little bit tired, but it was a good time. We really had fun having you come on and talk about your relationship marketing and all that stuff. Because it's always an important topic for the small business owner. I'll never forget when I first met you. We started going down that road, building relationships in the community, getting connected, using the Chamber of Commerce the way it's meant to be used. Always insightful. Always enjoyed the discussions and classes that you provided.
It looks like it paid off well for you.
Well, thank you. Another testament to what you do, my man. Another testament. So please tell us, for those listening who don't know Tim Nichols, tell us the life story, how you got to where you are today. What's that business life story?
Well, I'll even back up maybe further than what you know. So I grew up in a farming and ranching family, but my dad was also the bank president and CEO of one of the local banks. So I kind of grew up in the financial market there and having to build relationships as a family.
Mm-hmm.
So in that role, in his role, of course, he needed us to be not necessarily active in the community, but be respected in the community, right?
Exactly.
And so even in high school, I mean, I went through etiquette classes and things like that, So one of the best classes I ever had in high school, I'll shout out to one of my ag teachers who had a leadership class, Dr. Dale Morton. And we actually spent a semester going through the Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People book, as well as etiquette there. And our final was a dinner, and how well we did in the dinner determined our grade. So, I carried that. It was just kind of a family thing, and we always did it. We didn't pay attention to who wasn't acting like that. So we were kind of raised to be relationship builders. Well, went through college, got into the agricultural sector. And funny enough, because I thought I couldn't sell, and I was looking at the economics route, finance, things like that, but it was all agriculturally oriented. Ended up becoming a county extension agent where they take university education to the community and in the farming sense. And then about 2 years of that, I went and became an ag teacher. So I taught school. And
Oh, wow.
Oddly enough, I have taught floral design, and
Oh, man.
I can weld with pretty much any welder out there. So it's amazing what you learn as an ag teacher, but and what you teach. And so in that, I tried to carry forward what I had been taught and instill that in my students. But education had changed so much, and maybe it was the schools I was in, whatever. It just wasn't. It wasn't my calling. I'll say
Hmm.
that.
Exactly. I mean,
And
how
so
often do you see too for what you do, where that individual has that moment where they realize this isn't what I want to do or meant to do? And I think that's a big reason why people go from corporate to small business.
I think it is. I think it is. And I'll tell you, I know exactly when it was. I was teaching an ag leadership class on career choices.
Hmm.
And words came out of my mouth that if you get too far into a career, there is no turning back because you've gone too far to go and re-educate yourself for another career.
Kind of restart, so to speak.
That's right. And then you're kind of locked in with where you are. So if you've climbed this ladder and find out it's on the wrong building, it really hurts to go back all the way down the ladder and start climbing another one. And so I remember that day and I thought, I've got to not be here anymore. And so from there, I had a brother that was already working in the financial industry as a financial advisor. He had come out of an agricultural sales career, and so he said, "Tim, this is my brother Reese Nichols. He's with Edward Jones, and he said this is what we were meant to do." And I was like, let's see how you do. So I let him go for about 8 months, and so I ended up getting signed on with Edward Jones as well. And then I was with them for about 7 years.
Mhm.
I did several restarts. They don't even have the position anymore, I don't think, but where you go in to a community as a brand new financial advisor with no office. You've got a door knock 25 residential houses a day, and they watch your computer to see how many addresses you have input into the computer that night. Once you get done with that, you've got to write 25 thank you notes each night.
Yeah.
So I was well steeped in what you have to do to become successful. Well, I had done that for 2 years. It was very hard in the town I was in, and situation came up where I took over a book of business for a larger advisor that went competitive. And so that kind of saved me, because I was like, I don't know how much longer I can do this.
Well, that's a
But
really big grind too. I mean, hitting
yeah,
that level of metrics, the follow-ups, that's no easy task. Again, that's what it
two
takes to
years.
get a business going, but it's not, there's nothing easy about it.
And they were even telling me what to say and how to say it. And so the training was incredible, but the doing was the hard part. And then the mindset, the emotional, propping yourself up emotionally every day, when you've been defeated for 2 years, so you're not making the progress that you want. And so a lot of what I teach through 3 million% comes from what I learned back then, and how I learned to cope, and how I learned to succeed through it. But that's where I learned to use the Chamber of Commerce as a platform. I didn't know anything about a Chamber of Commerce. I stepped into that just really to try to circumvent what I was being told to do. I didn't need to go do residential door knocking anymore.
Right.
I was done with that. And I was like, I'm going to quit this job, or I'm going to find another way to do it.
Because that's not
And
a, it's very, very tedious. And I'll never forget again when I first joined a Chamber of Commerce. I think it was back in April of 2018, if I remember correctly. And my response was the same as everyone else. Cool, let's do it. Now what? And
right,
it's people have a misconception. They assume that you get the membership, it's like a magic wand waves over your business, and you have people knocking on your door. That's not what a chamber's meant to do. It's a platform, to your point.
oh yeah, and it's a relationship trading platform. you know,
Exactly.
and and really what a lot of people don't understand, they're event planners. They plan as many events as possible to give you opportunity to go and try to build these relationships. But, and right now I know that they're hurting because their opportunities to have events are down.
Oh,
Um,
events are down. The whole relationship building there. And this is something I'd love for you to speak to later on too, after you finish telling your story. But relationship building will always be there, but it does evolve because it's a little different doing it in person than it is compared to doing it virtually.
right, right. And I've actually, even since you've been in the program, I've learned a completely different skill set in basically using Facebook as a community to door knock Facebook, basically.
Hmm.
And now I can sell by chat. So
Well, Well, again, that speaks to everything we talk all the time about digitalization. It's not
mhm,
that people have changed, it's their platform and the way they do it that changes a little bit. So the whole concept, of building relationships or cold calling, so to speak. Yeah, you're going to have to keep doing those, but the way you do it is going to change because the economy itself is changing.
right. I do have a mini story to tell you
Go for it.
later about that. Well, about that, I learned something the other day. I was applying 3 million% concepts and strategies in my social strategy, and it actually freaked somebody out and stopped them from chatting with me
Oh
because
no.
I knew too much about them already before they felt like they knew me.
I'm going to make a note of that. Ask about funny story.
So, you know, even even in an interpersonal conversation, um, 3 million% strategy works so fast that I've actually had someone give me their criminal history within 15 minutes of a conversation. And that that's when I knew I'm pretty good at unlocking doors.
Well, you talk about building. What are the terms you like to use? Building credibility with them on
Mhm.
on a very short time period, and building that trustworthiness in a short time period, and really getting each other to the point where you're comfortable being vulnerable like that.
Right.
It's a skill. It's just, again, that's the other thing. Everything you've always said. It's a skill that can be learned. Yes, there are some people that are particularly good about it or good at it, aka Tim Nichols. But it's a skill that can be learned and can be taught.
Right. And there's actually even a strategy and flow to a rhythm and flow to how you ask questions and the order in which you ask them, even in the tone in which you ask them, that unlocks these doors that basically accelerates the speed of trust.
Hmm.
And
Exactly.
so that's really what I've come to learn, and I've learned to apply that to a broad spectrum of relationship building. And that's some of what we teach in 3 million%. But back to how we even got to 3 million%. So I was 7 years with Jones. 2008 and 9 crash destroyed my whole community and me.
Rough
So
time for a lot of people.
yeah, I was in Mount Pleasant, Texas at the time, Pilgrim's Pride headquarters there. They they filed for bankruptcy that year.
Dang.
Corn skyrocketed. Remember, price of gas was around $4 a gallon.
I remember.
So if you think about it from a transportation aspect, on top of that, ethanol was a big thing in being added to fuel.
Hmm.
So ethanol is made of corn. That drove the corn prices up. And so that put two of their major base materials that they needed for transportation and production sky high. And so that put them in a bad spot. Well, most of the people in my age group, if they got to keep their job, had to leave town,
Wow.
because
That's so
it,
intense.
yeah. And then on top of that, all the houses that were in my price range, everyone put their house on the market at the same time.
I was going to say, so that makes it really tough to sell.
That's right. So I had had my house for, I want to say 4 or 5 years, and was actually able to only sell it for a $5,000 loss. So I was so happy to be able to walk out with that loss.
I was going to say,
And
talk about being relative at that point in time. If everyone else was in 15, 20, 30, 50, it's like, heck yeah, I'll take five and call it a day.
that's right. That's right. Well, and really, here I am being transparent on your show, but I say that I'm going to tell you, add more here that a lot of people don't know, because a lot of it is the foundation of why we created 3 million%. So during that crash, my wife left and took the kids. I was one day away from foreclosure. I've been through all the fears that a financial advisor could have. I've lived them,
Every single one of them.
every single one of them. Well, there's only one that I haven't, and that was stroke or heart attack or death um, from it, and got real close.
Keep going on the right path. Let's not see you hit
So,
that one.
so and so I actually coach licensed professionals now, but let's get to that place where I made that switch. So 2010, I moved to Dallas, technically where the money was, right? All these trust fund babies and
Exactly.
people like that. And I went to work for Chase, and I was around the Preston and Royal area of Dallas, and it was high net worth, high income. But under that business model, I learned a lot, but it was not my style of relationship building. Everything is within the branch. So they didn't want me out in the public. They didn't want me building relationships outside of the branch. And of course,
Interesting.
my joke was, are you afraid somebody's going to walk in with a $10 million check or something? And they're like,
Yeah.
yes. They were like, we don't want to miss that. And so I was like, Okay, yeah, that's different. So it really kind of put me on pause, but at the same time, from what I was doing or what I knew to do, but at the same time, I learned their model.
Mm-hmm.
So around 2012, I had there were changes going on in the banking industry as well as in the financial services industry that I didn't like, and I just knew I needed to be independent. And uh, you know, getting into my Christian testimony, I felt like God was calling me out to go independent, and honestly, I was scared to death to even do that. And so I felt like I needed to go to Rockwall, and I felt like I had to go independent. And it was such an interesting way, though, because in my fear, I interviewed with everybody. I interviewed with Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, USAA, E Trade, you know,
Yep, the
all
whole
these
thing.
different.
Everyone that was in the industry you interviewed.
Yeah, yeah. And I did it out of fear because the last thing I wanted to do was go independent.
Go independent into a community where you knew everyone, right?
Right, right. And so, but instead, I went independent into a community where I knew no one. And I had no assets come with me. I had no account say, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to move with Tim, or whatever." So I started from absolute scratch with no money, no income, no marketing budget, anything like that. But something that God put on my heart was, "You've done this before, and you're good at it." And so I started remembering the processes that I'd used before, and I really didn't understand them in the way that I explain them now. The five keys, the five strategies, I did not know how to explain them at the time. I
Right.
just did them.
It's like
Right.
one of those
And
things you know the meaning of it, you know how to do it, but then it's like perfect, put it on this piece of paper. It's like, well, that's a little harder.
yeah, yeah. So what happened was moving to Rockwall, starting from complete scratch, I my my thought process coming in was no one knows who I am. And Rockwall being a high net worth, high income community, it's highly competitive because of that in the financial industry. You've got
Hmm.
banks, financial advisors, insurance agents, all kinds of institutions, private equity. Everyone is there in that area trying
Yep,
to serve that
exactly.
base.
It's a very
So
rich market for that.
right, and so I knew it was highly competitive, and I couldn't even be bothered by that. I just had to. My thought process was, having grown up in a community similar, I knew that I had to build relationships as fast as I could, as deep as I could,
Hmm. Exactly.
and I knew that going into networking events, there would be no one there that wanted to do business with me. What my goal was to go deep enough with them that they would want to refer to me their friends and family.
Exactly. Build your funnels, so to speak. Build your
Right,
partnerships, the synergies.
right. Now, and this might sound morbid, but as a financial advisor, what you have to look at, even to be encouraged by meeting people who don't fit your profile, your avatar of who you're looking
Hmm.
for, is in the financial world, especially as a financial advisor or an insurance agent, there's always someone that dies, that passes away, and they leave inheritances. Also, people change jobs and they have 401ks that are left behind. You know,
Exactly.
you have business owners that need business retirement plans and they don't even know where to start.
Well,
Right.
how about an
So
exit plan?
exit plans, actually, most of them don't even consider that, that I've found.
Sadly.
Yeah, they don't consider key man insurance or anything like that. That's all new foreign territory for a lot of them. That if you go to try to explain it, they just build this wall, you
It's you're
know.
trying to sell something.
Exactly. You're
Yep.
like, I'm trying to make up a problem. Um, but what I learned was the faster that I could build those deep relationships, the faster I could grow. And where that comes from, I was at a Ziegler Business Boot Camp, and this was said by Well, Zig Ziglar said it, but it came up in the boot camp. Zig Ziglar said, you can have everything you want in life if you will help enough other people get what they want. And it hit me in that boot camp that I mean, I was already feeling defeated going into a town where I didn't know anyone, with no assets and no income and no marketing budget.
Right.
And God just kind of used that to inspire me to say, go love on people. And the faster you build those relationships, the faster you walk through hard things with them,
Mm-hmm.
because I had been through a literal hell, or a figurative hell in what I'd already been through. So I knew what it was to lose family. I knew what it was to lose a business. I knew what it was to go through all of that. And there's isolation that really hits hard with business owners, especially licensed professionals,
Oh, for
such as
sure.
financial advisors, insurance agents, real estate agents, accountants,
You get stuck
attorneys.
on this little island, and even though you can meet people that are in the same thing, until you start building those relationships, yeah, you feel very, very lonely. You can be shaking a lot of hands, but it's one of the interesting things, like one of those paradox things. You can be right out there meeting a ton of different people, but if you're not building the relationship, you still have that really strong lonely feeling. And that's not even good for you mentally. I mean, we've seen a lot of that research come out with COVID and, the lockdowns and everything.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, that's a hugely common problem.
Well, here's where it gets worse. You can't talk about it with anyone locally. And here's why. Because I experienced this in the 2008 and 9 crash. I was actually in Rotary and stuff like that. I was broke. I couldn't afford Rotary. But if I quit Rotary, that signaled danger, that signaled weakness and broke trust, and people would push away fast as they could. Right. And so by fear of losing income, you eat it. You have to eat your pain. You have to stay silent, be internalize everything, and all you can do is really pray about it. There's no one at church that understands it. There's no one, unless they've lived it, that can comprehend it.
That's not exactly something that's easy to open up about either. It's not like you just start talking to someone and be like, "Yeah, I kind of got this problem. I'm not sure if we're going to hit payroll this month." I mean, it's
And
not something you can just open up to anyone about.
And I've actually had that. I've actually had that where I got to a place in the speed of trust and the depth of relationships where I was mentoring about 20 businesses at a time when I first got to Rockwall. And I was just mentoring them, pouring into them, going to lunch with them. They weren't paying me anything or anything like that. I was connecting them, getting them placed on boards and stuff like that. So they started coming to me with all of the other. Right. And I was able to help them navigate because of my past experience having lived it. Right. So, doing that, though, I looked up 12 months from my start date in Rockwall, and I had grown by 3 million%. That's where the name 3 million%, name of my business, comes from. Now, let's talk metrics as to why 3 million% or how that looks. I started off with zero in assets under management, and a common metric used within financial advisors is assets under management. So I'd grown to 3 million. Now there have been those that have outperformed that and all that kind of stuff. But what I would challenge them on is they do it having freshly gone independent, losing all the names of the big banks and brokerage firms, and then in a town where they didn't know a single person.
Well, then I would also say too, being able to articulate the process to it pretty much where it's mapped out, saying, "Yeah, here's the handbook. Follow the handbook, and you'll get there."
Right, right. So oddly enough, I doubled in year two. And so I grew by 100% in year two, 50% in year three, 25% year four, 12.5% year five, another 12.5% year six, sold in year seven for a profit.
There you go. There's that overnight success. 7 years.
Right. So, and the funny thing was, it was never my intention to sell. I wasn't building it to sell. The really cool part about it was the more I mentored these businesses through the years, the more that came to me wanting to know more.
Well, that's the other thing I love with your model and what you really highlight. It's servant leadership in practice. I mean, leadership theory, we talked about again on our show last week, so many different models of it, but the model that is consistently most effective and most efficient is that servant leadership model, which is exactly what both Ziegler and Maxwell both teach.
Right. And a lot of what I did came from fighting my own depression. I'm not, I don't have nothing medically, prescribed, nothing diagnosed, I'd say, that I'm depressed. But as a financial advisor, you go through some hills and valleys.
Yeah, big time. It's that type of industry. It's massive stress. It can be massively rewarding, but there's also
Right.
massive stress that comes with it.
In my hardest days, I would wake up and say, God, you called me here. What am I doing? What am I supposed to do today? Because the things that I thought were going to happen aren't happening. The people that I thought were going to be clients aren't clients yet. And I'm struggling. What do you want me to do? And the answer was always go love on people. And I was like, then you've got to put them in front of me because I don't even know what I'm looking for.
And that's, I think, another really common problem for small businesses. You get to that point in time, anywhere between 6 and 36 months, I'd say, in that brackets where it's most intense, you really find yourself asking why. Why am I here? Is it worth it? Because I mean, everyone that goes from corporate to small business will tell you, yeah, early on, it's a pay cut and it's more hours and there are fewer benefits. It's intense. And then,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you get to that 6, 12, 18, 24, so on and so forth month mark. And it's like, okay, now it's time for that gut check. Why am I really here? Which circles back to your other point. Business is a platform. I like to look at it this way: money is a great reward, but it's an
Mm-hmm.
extremely poor purpose. You use the business as a platform to achieve a higher vision, and when it works in that light, that is when you find more fulfillment. That's when it's more rewarding. When you're seeking it solely for the for the financial part of it, yeah, you can work it up to that point, but you're going to find it disappointingly shallow. When you use the business as a platform to achieve a higher vision, that's when you can achieve deeper fulfillment.
Money will help you make a living. Your purpose will help you make a life.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
It's so true though. It's so true. It's one of those things you can say over and over and over again and never say it enough.
Yeah. And so what we started doing is having the small group peer advisory meetings
Mhm.
because really the mentorship got to be too much for me.
It's intense. It can be extremely intense, especially if you start scaling it.
Right. And I was individually mentoring 20 businesses at a time. That was in about year 3 or 4. And so what I knew I needed to do was to teach my mentors how to mentor. Or my
Exactly.
mentees, teach my mentees how to mentor.
Correct.
And so that's what we started to do. And that's where I started training. But then I came up with the concept of, the large churches, like the 15,000 member churches,
Mega churches.
they have the life groups, small groups, community groups, whatever you want to call them. They all have different structures for those things like that. But what I learned was, and I experienced this too, is that you can't bring up business stuff in a group like that because there's not enough business minded people in there and they don't understand.
It's just a different, it's for lack of a better term, it's a different demographic. It's neither good, bad, nor indifferent. But if you bring business problems to, for example, a doctor that's practicing at a big hospital, their sole focus is brain surgery. They might have wisdom for you, but 9 out of 10 times, it's the talking business problem. It's not going to be relatable. It's going to be a little bit that's outside of my parameter. Sorry. And again, you
Exactly.
can't expect the MD, that brain surgeon to specialize in business. That's not their forte. But when you're looking for people to build community with, yeah, especially as a small business owner, you need to be able to have that support group that, for lack of a better term, gets it.
Well, and my idea was to take that concept and bring it out into the business community where we could actually do life with one another, and we could prop each other up in our hard days. We could celebrate with them through their good days,
Exactly.
and we can refer like mad. we're going to take care of those who take care of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all, and something I teach in my program is we live by that Ziegler quote: "You can have everything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. And the faster you help them get what they want, the faster you get what you want." You
Exactly.
know?
And that's the whole model of servant leadership. People have this misconception that, well, why would I waste time helping someone else to go get what I want? Well, because the fact of the matter is, first of all, it's the right thing to do. Second of all, it's actually going to be a lot faster if you do it that way. Go serve other people first. It will come back to you. And yes, there will be situations when it won't come back to you right now. You give that sucker time, it'll come back to you tenfold. And again, I've seen that happen personally. So yeah, it's definitely the best way to go about it. It takes patience and it takes diligence and consistency, but it's absolutely the best way to go about it.
Yeah. And yeah, especially even prospecting, like at networking events, things like that. I think a lot of people have misconceptions about what it is and what the response should be. If you think about it, and I'm speaking more to your audience than you because you already know this, no one is there to buy anything. Everyone is there to sell something, and nobody
Precisely.
cares what I have to sell until they know how much I care about them. And the
Hmm.
faster I can help them sell whatever it is they're selling, the more they want to help me.
Exactly. Well, we're kind of built, created with that reciprocal mindset. And so, yeah, the faster you can help someone get what they want, the faster, like, okay, yeah, I want to go out of my way and help you. What can I do to help you? Then it's like, perfect. There's my door. I need this, this, and this. And they're like, oh, sure, I'd be happy to. Why don't you come meet so and so too while you're at it? And again, there's
Mhm.
that increased return right off the bat.
So I figured out a model to create referral generators. And if they would just follow that model, then they would become referral generators also. And so that actually led to the peer advisory format that program that we started through the Chamber of Commerce. But interestingly enough, we infused mastermind concepts into the peer advisory groups of speaking hard truth into one another. And I wrote curriculum around that to help them with how to implement that model,
Hmm.
right? But at the same time, I couldn't personally coach everyone. We needed the members to speak truth, you
You
know.
just said the magic word too, speak truth. There are some very uncomfortable conversations sometimes that need to be had in business. There's no way around it. But in speaking truth, you ultimately help the business owner because you help them overcome that challenge that they can't get over because many times it's not being dealt with in a truthful way. Not that it's dishonest, but it's not accurate. It's not being dealt with properly. When you have that trusted group of people who get it, who get you, who get the situation, and can say, okay, you're really not on the right path here. Here's what you need to be doing. That's where you get the bang for your buck.
Yep. And through through that whole process, here we've been going now for almost 3 years with the peer advisory groups. Actually, leaders in the program are who spoke truth into me and said, because my independent practice was called Nichols Wealth Management. That's what I had grown so fast and sold, but I had no intentions of selling it. I was just going to grow both at the same time. But my leadership within the program started asking me hard questions and speaking truth. And so it was funny because God was using them and I was praying about it and they started speaking to me more and more. So it took about a 6 month process to get through to me. Six people came to me over a 3 month process and said, "What are you going to do with Nichols Wealth Management?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Why
Hmm.
would I do anything with it?" And they're like, "Well, we just see 3 million% as being something bigger
Hmm.
in concept and vision. And I think you're stuck here with Nichols Wealth Management, fighting it out with every other financial firm here, and I was like, okay, noted. And after the sixth one, I came and thought, God, is that you?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's no longer just a random occurrence. It's a pattern. It's
Yeah.
more than a trend. It's like, okay, now I'm starting to pick up on a common theme here. Let's look into this.
So another six came to me over the next 3 months. The 12th being my older brother, who was still with the same firm I mentioned before. And he called me out of the blue. He knew what I was doing with 3 million%, but he was kind of cheering me on as a financial advisor because he's one too. And he said, I think you have to make a decision. I think you either need to sell your practice or drop 3 million percent, one or the other. It's not fair to either of your audiences. And that was the answer I needed because I'd been praying for that for 6
Yep.
months already. And I started the process to sell my practice that day as soon as we got off the phone. So I knew the answer, and I just was like, thank you for that. That's all I needed to hear. And it took less than 6 months to sell my practice and move forward. And here we are. I kind of had to restart on how I did it, how I did the format, the platform of 3 million percent. But we started off with a membership platform in November of 2019. So by November 2020, we had grown 75 times. So
Okay. Go ahead.
well, we went to 75 members that, from scratch, but it's pretty tough building out a community. And we're scattered across 4 states. So we've maintained that membership now, but now we're in the spreading mode again, growth mode. So we're in 4 states, have 75 members, and we're about to onboard quite a lot.
Congrats. So that was the kind of a good phase in. What does 3 million percent actually look like? Because again, I've been through it. I know, but for those listening, what does it look like to be enrolled in 3 million percent?
Actually, it's much different than what you even knew it as.
Oh, even better. Okay, educate me. I'm looking forward to hearing this.
So when you started out, I was actually writing the curriculum the week of our meetings. So each key that we covered, I was writing it, and then I would email it to y'all.
That's a fast turnaround.
Yeah, and then we would go. And so before long, that actually became a workbook, and we had the workbook for 2 years, if not a little longer. I turned it into an e-workbook where everybody could just download it, and I didn't have to worry about printing or anything like that.
Right.
And then just around Christmas, December, I was awakened at 3:30 in the morning, and I kind of felt like a God directive, and I thought, okay, what's going on here? And it hit me that this is a 90-day implementation program. The growth groups are 90 days. They meet for 90 days and then they rotate.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we do that to create depth in each growth group. And then we rotate to create breadth.
Exactly.
For the referral generation. And so what we've done is I have 5 keys to the strategies, right? So what they are, the whole purpose is referral generation. That's what we're after. In fact, I don't have it pulled up right now, but I could share a screen. But our whole purpose is referral generation, and we're trying to help businesses and licensed professionals and entrepreneurs overcome 5 challenges. And that would be creating strategic relationships, networking frustration, marketing confusion, trust and credibility issues, and isolation.
Mm-hmm.
I get the biggest response from the isolation part.
Oh, I believe it. It's one of those. Again, I know we talked about it earlier, but it's something, again, I'm comfortable talking about it every single day because it is such a common problem. What's the old saying? It's lonely at the top. When the buck stops with you, when you are that small business owner, it gets very lonely very quickly. And it's imperative that you find that support group because you weren't meant to go through life alone like that. You were meant to go through it in community, to have that support structure in place.
You're exactly right. And so what the 5 key strategies that we talk about, there are 6 meetings for every growth group. They meet for about 2 hours at a time. There are 10 businesses in each small group, in each growth group. And so they are industry diverse. So there is no overlap between between industry. So there wouldn't be 2 financial advisors or 2 real estate agents.
No need to worry about kind of sharing the industry secrets that within a competitor potentially.
Right. So instead of the workbook now, I actually developed a planner, a 90-day planner that has all the questions built in, and it progresses into implementation over the 90-day period. And you respond to each question with a 30-day response, a 60-day response, and a 90-day response.
Very cool. I love the
And
tracking in there too, because it's
yeah,
so important to track the progress. If you're not tracking, you can't measure, and then you can't forecast, and you can't really state what works and what doesn't.
that's right. So these growth groups are actually, they discuss what their plan is, what their relationship marketing plan is, and those 5 keys are: deepen relationships quickly, which develop your strategic relationships; elevate your profile within the community,
Mm-hmm.
right? Leverage networks, build credibility, and establish community. So those 5 keys actually help you overcome the 5 challenges that businesses face, but then the group walks through that together. So I discussed 5 keys. I the first meeting was intended originally to be like an introductory meeting,
Mm-hmm.
like everyone gets to know each other, things like that. But that has developed into an introductory, but also setting the mindset and expectations for how this is going to go.
Mm-hmm. Because again, you
Right,
have to have that very clear direction, that clear vision as to where you're heading. And that was
right.
something else that I saw too. Because I think I was through 3 or 4 of your programs, because
Mhm.
back then it was an expedited program and the standard pace program. I went through the expedited one once and the standard one twice, if I remember correctly. And it changed form a little bit during that time period too, because as people came on board, it was, yes, I'm ready to make this introduction, but we're all on the same page here. Let's get going now. Let's just get a start on it. And again, it
Right.
was, people were very, again, following the process where people learn to open and deepen the relationship in a short amount of time,
Well, and that's
authentically.
right. And they're peer led because we wanted to have our mentees mentoring shortly. And
Hmm.
the faster they could get to a leadership role, the faster they could grow their influence within their market. So that would develop their referral generation faster. So now we've got members that have been in for about almost 3 years now that have risen to leadership. What's funny, I never appointed any leaders. They have risen to leadership by bringing people into the program, and they have 15 or 20 businesses looking to them for leadership. They don't even look to me necessarily.
Well, again,
They're
that
using,
goes to the whole practice, of servant leadership and the 5 levels of servant leadership. Again, I'm a little bit of a leadership nut. I enjoy studying the theory of it. It's true level 5 max capacity leadership, because you've gotten it to the point where it's not dependent upon, and this is a huge lesson for small business owners. It's not dependent upon Tim Nichols solely. Yes, you are driving that vision forward. It is built upon your passion, your vision, 100%. However, you can step away without having the business die off. That's true level 5 leadership. Level 4 leadership is one notch lower, where it's humming. People are loving it. They're loving you. But when you step away, it stops. And that's not a sustainable business model.
right. And I look at, man, I don't want to throw too many names around here, but I just look at some of those big players that we've talked about that
Mm-hmm.
have millions of followers, right? And when they pass away or they get ill, something like that, and they're no longer on stage in the spotlight, their program dies.
Exactly. Because it's a prime example of that level 4 leadership. When it's all built on one person, it ultimately dies off. It needs to be bigger than that. It needs to be built upon the vision and passion. And you need, and again, it comes down to empowering the people coming up that management or leadership pipeline, empowering them to be good enough at what they do so that they can replace you. Which
I had
again,
a
which is a, go ahead.
I had a very interesting conversation this week. My program administrator, Beth Holland, and I, we meet weekly to discuss our progress strategies, anything like that. And it was such a unique meeting this week because I said, after almost 3 years, I feel like we're to the place where I don't even know everyone in the program anymore. I don't know what groups are starting. I don't know who's leading them. And it's almost like pushing a sailboat out into the water, and but the difference is I'm actually still building the sailboat while she's driving.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
so I'm still building as fast as I can, and it's already at sail. And so, it's very interesting though. And I'm having to learn different forms of leadership to make this thing work. I've had to give up a lot of my control issues. I've had to empower others. What's really neat is to see our volunteer leaders who have risen to leadership start doing the process on their own, and they don't even ask me about it. They just know what to do and
Hmm.
they go do it because it
Exactly.
grows their business, right? And so they're leading through modeling. They are modeling how to do this to everyone that follows them, to everyone that's in their groups. And I actually had a discussion with those leaders yesterday where they were saying, we're sick of watching our mentees sit on their laurels. And they were saying, we're going to push, they started naming names, saying, we're going to push so and so out of the nest. We're going to push so and so out of the nest. And if they can't fly,
Well, it's
they can leave.
let's talk about it. The small business mindset that's so imperative that you have and that you need to have. If you're not growing, you're dying, and that applies to us on personal levels as well. If we're not taking those next steps, we are beginning the path of degeneration, and it's the same thing in business. If a business gets comfortable with where they are currently, kind of settle down and enjoy the market share that they've got, there's someone out there that's just as hungry and just as dedicated, if not more so. And if you give them a chance, they will absolutely seize the opportunity. And you can't do that, especially in an economy where it's so easy to compete with each other like we have today. You
Hmm.
can't afford to do nothing. You have to continue to take that next step in personal growth, in business growth, the whole 9 yards.
Hmm. And something else that hit me was self-sorting. I used to take it so personally when someone would leave the program. And the way we're set up is we're different than a lot of we're not a networking program. We are referral generation, but it's peer advisory, right? And so it is a membership program. You could pay for the year up front, or you can pay it on a monthly basis, but there is no contract. There is no cancellation fee. There is no initiation fee. I want it come and go. If
Hmm.
we're no longer adding value to you, we need you to leave.
Oh, exactly. Well, that's again, you knowing your perfect audience as well. And that's something. How many times have you seen it where you're trying to help someone? You're like, Tell me, what's your ideal client? Anyone who does this. Right. Okay, well, I get you can work with anyone who does that, but that's not what's your ideal client. That is
Hmm.
a prime example of you as a business owner knowing precisely who your audience is. Yes, you can work with people and get it done, so to speak, but you're slowing the process down. They're slowing you down. It's not mutually beneficial. You have to know that prime customer.
And it's so neat to watch because they are self-sorting or self-filtering. And so we actually discussed several who have left the program recently. And we're just trying to figure out, if and this is me with my volunteer leaders as well, saying, all right, what did we do to add value? What did we do to detract value? Did we do
Yep.
anything to make them want to leave? What was the problem? And actually, what it came down to is growing pains. There was several of the same industry that weren't, because we keep it industry exclusive per each growth group, and there were several that weren't willing to lead a group, but they wanted to be in a group that had a slot for their industry. And our response was, you can lead a group or you can wait on one to open up.
You
And they
have to.
still they self-filtered because they didn't want to lead.
And again, that's you knowing your customer base. It's you knowing who you can help most, and then who in turn will make that best for you. Because there is such a thing as a customer that's not going to work. We all see it. We've all been there, and you need to have the system in place, the structure in place, to where it filters its way out, some shape, way, or form. But it's particularly cool that you've got it to where it's doing it on its own. That is spectacular on a number of
And even
levels.
our volunteer leaders are qualifying members by who they want to work with. It's not even a policy or anything like that. We've just trained so that this is ideally who you'd want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But we have such a broad range. We have had an orthopedic surgeon as a member of the program for 2 years now. We have a dentist that's been in the program for over 2 years now. We have all the way from, you have all your typical financial advisor, insurance agent, real estate agent, mortgage lender, banker, that kind of stuff. But we get some physical therapists. We've got 2 physical therapists in the program right now, chiropractors.
Mm-hmm.
We've It's just it amazes me that, I mean, we've got carpet cleaning, plumbing, electricians, but they all need to know who each other knows.
Exactly. And again, that's where it comes down to building relationships and being able to have that structure and system in place that enables them to take that action, that allows them to take the initiative to do it. But if they're not going to take the initiative, it's like, no, that's not something you can do for them. You're there to do it with them, but no, you're not going to do it for them because that defeats the purpose of it.
Right. Now, let me tell you something else that's been added that I don't think existed while you were there. So I'm launching a growth accelerator program that is a group coaching program where they're in my growth group. They're in my group, my program. And so I'm actually, I've done a lot more accelerated training on my own to help navigate, because everything that I did was from in-person events,
Right.
and so I'm actually learning things that are new to the digital marketing industry. Actually, on my I Must Ask You a Question live stream next Monday, we had the CEO of one of those companies that has developed an overlay of Facebook that acts like a CRM,
And
and you
so,
track
so Facebook Live, what time on Monday?
at 2 o'clock Central,
2 p.m. Central.
and it'll be on the 3 million% Facebook page.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm definitely going to tune in for that. I'll get a few other people and be like, hey,
So
it's probably a conversation you want to hear.
this CEO is out of San Diego. She is also a coach, and her and a partner co-created this whole platform, this whole CRM based on meeting her need. And it is a beautiful thing. I've gone through all the training on it, stuff like that, lined up to being an affiliate on it. But I'm so excited to have her on the show Monday because we get each other, and
Mm-hmm.
it's such a cool product. But it makes it where you actually can go prospect Facebook without feeling so salesy. I mean, it makes it where like you'd be talking to your local people typically.
Digital community.
That's
Digital
exactly
community.
what it is.
And I
Now,
think that, go ahead.
well, yeah, go finish your thought.
I was just going to elaborate and ramble a little bit. I was just going to say, again, it's all knowing that digital, that's where consumer behavior is going. That's where
Right.
business behavior is going. So as a small business, you can see the trend. 2020 was a massive catalyst for it. It's not going away. So get comfortable with it. Start adopting it because we're only going more so in that direction.
That's right. That's right. Now that growth accelerator program, it is available, and it will have social learning units in it,
Mm-hmm.
and there will be community. So there will be like a I'm going to say a growth group platform in that tier level. So it's going
Interesting.
to be priced much differently than the lower priced growth group program. Growth group program I consider more of a localized organic growth structure.
Mm.
And so that actually helps them build influence. You could accelerate this whole process in that growth accelerator program. And if you need to grow your business fast, that's where that's going to get discussed. And so then we have 2 other mastermind concepts. We have a transformer mastermind. Mastermind, the groups don't rotate, they stay together, and they don't just discuss relationship marketing. They discuss sales, marketing, administration, operations, leadership, the 5 pillars of business. So they actually spend about 20 minutes per business, and the one in the spotlight presents a challenge,
Yep.
and the other businesses all speak into that challenge for 20 minutes.
I like it. I like it. Definitely something small businesses need to study for sure. Because again, if you're not growing, you're dying. And what better way to do it than to go through it with that supportive structure to have those people speaking into the business?
Right. And I can go, I don't think I'm able to go into the comments and give access to that, where to learn all about that. But it's access.3millionpercent.com.
Access and what it's got three spelled out or number three?
Number three, and
Three
then spell out million percent, run together,
.com.
.com. And that was HTTPS.
Perfect. Definitely go ahead and get that sent out there. We'll make sure to, again, it's another one of those resources that small business owners need to be aware of and know about. Dang, that we're already at the 10-minute mark. That hour went by quickly. We're gonna have to do another follow-up podcast.
This was awesome. And really, I think you're the first one that I really shared my whole story with as to how we got to this point, even prior to being a financial advisor. So glad we could do that.
Thank you for doing that, because that plays into the whole small business story, that small business ownership, the small business life. Every small business has a backstory to it. And again, to your point about being lonely, people go through those challenges thinking, man, I'm way out there. I'm the only one experiencing this. And the reality is, no, there are a lot of other people sharing similar issues, or ironically, I find the exact same issue. But because no one ever gets into that support structure, they don't ever talk about it. But anyway, we could go ahead.
And listener, I have lived every fear that you could possibly imagine with business ownership. So if you want to ask questions, I encourage you to continue the conversation in the comments or find me at one of those links.
Absolutely. 100%. Tim's a rock solid guy, by the way. You'll thoroughly enjoy the discussion. If you've enjoyed this podcast, you'd enjoy a one-on-one with him. But for this next part, 10 minutes or so, rubber meets the road. Based on your life story, your experiences, what are 3 tips that you would give to small business owners that they should either continue doing or start doing if they're not already?
Gosh, my 5 keys just apply to everything. But I'll try to use something different. I would say be bold. Be bold, because now if you're timid, it's going to pass you by.
You got to miss the opportunity. You got to be bold, be courageous.
The paradigm has shifted, and you've got to dive into the cracks where the paradigm has shifted. And what I noticed when the paradigm shifted is the superpower corporations lost their footing, right? And they lost their footing where my relationships meant a lot more at that point. And so I went boldly into those relationships. And really, during quarantine is where we skyrocketed. 3 million percent grew. It went viral.
I can imagine, because again, talk about isolation to a new level. We're not meant to be there. And if the only way forward to stand out is to be bold.
And right now, because events are so hard to come by due to our small group structure, most of our small groups still meet in person, right? But we're seeing where Connecticut is having a hard time with that. Illinois is having a hard time with
California.
Yeah, California can't do that. And so we've actually got someone in Florida as well. And so the challenge there is trying to educate them as to how to grow this from scratch where they are with those relationships without the advantage of events. And so that's where really the growth accelerator format comes into play, where we teach you how to, I'm going to say, weaponize Facebook for your own benefit. So be bold, right? Says in Joshua 1:9, I believe, be strong and courageous, and I've had to live by that. Even in my biggest days of doubt, right? So be bold. True. And I would say build community as best you can, whether you do it with us or with someone else. Build a tight-knit community where you all help each other grow.
And I think, again, that plays into so many discussions too, even from like a CRM perspective. As you grow your business and you have different clients come out, or recurring clients, build community amongst them. It's a hugely valuable resource, not only for you, but also for them.
In our strategies, we talk about, and this is where it's gotten a little bit more defined than when you were in, but we talk about building community among your peers, among your clients, and among your market.
All three.
Yeah. And so, and I think most people don't know to create community among their clients.
It's a stereotypical small business problem. It's all about the sale. You close it, and then it's on to the next one. I know we talk about it frequently, but it's 7 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than to retain an old one. So heck yeah, go build community with that client, with your base of clients, whether you're a boutique retail store, a restaurant, a financial advisor, a banker, whatever it might be. Heck yeah, build community.
As a financial advisor, I started hosting dinners for select clients, and the specific purpose was not client appreciation, although that was the guise of it. It was to cross-pollinate, to help them grow their businesses.
Exactly. That
So
full circle servant leadership cycle again.
yeah, and so that's really kind of where I got the idea on the peer advisory things, stuff I was already doing in my own practice. I just took and started teaching others how to do that.
I love it. So what's tip number 3? You got be bold, build community, and what's number 3?
I would say I had it earlier actually, but and these are, like I said, these are atypical than what I would normally give. So be bold, build community, and I'm going to say never stop learning.
Oh. Okay, you know what? There's a funny commonality there. I think you are the 4th podcast guest that we've had on that has said that, and I really want to drive that home. That is so important. Too many people get comfortable. I mean, it's even in our podcast when people are sharing their life story. You talk about a common theme. They start off, they get, that fast start. They're riding high. They get comfortable. They get careless. Then they crash and they build it back up. But it's so much that could have been, so many issues that could have been avoided. I love the never learning part. That just speaks to me on such a deep level. Never stop learning.
And a lot of our concepts have been tweaked. I mean, I'm under one of the largest coaches in the world right now. He's out of Australia, and I was on a group coaching call with him and had 188 people on the call from all over the world. And from, gosh, they were Dutch, British, South African. I mean, just
you name it, it's all over.
Crazy, this guy's reach, and and I've actually followed him for over a year trying to get into the program, and so it's one of those things. I would say get coaching as well, and you never stop learning. But here, I've downloaded. I say that figuratively. I go through about 15 or 20 books a year.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning at that rate, and I'm learning to, not just for me, but how to apply it in our members' businesses.
Exactly. And back to that whole never stop learning thing. Our economy moves way too quickly to get comfortable with the knowledge base that you've got. If you get comfortable for more than about 6 weeks, if not even shorter, you're going to find yourself starting to fall behind, and that's not a good place to be in.
The paradigm shifted so fast in the 3 or 4 months of COVID, of quarantine, that it felt like 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I had multiple concept changes at that point, and we were actually saving businesses from going under in that moment, and it wasn't me necessarily. The peer advice that came out of those peer advisory groups saved multiple businesses from their past experiences. Then we saw some of them falter and had to go get jobs. I saw one of our members take another one of our members who was desperately needing a job and put her at the front of the line in an interview process that he wasn't even part of, but it was with his company. And so, and you would know all these people, but the thing is it's just amazing to me to watch. But I've forgotten a lot of what transpired even on a local organic basis of how they all came together to save one another. And those are the core believers in what we do. Those that didn't get to experience that have self-filtered.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Boy, we're coming up on our mark here, but I cannot thank you enough, Tim, for sharing the life story, for really opening up, being vulnerable, for sharing what you're doing with 3,000,000%, all the great stuff, the great ways you're helping small businesses, your rubber meets the road tips. I mean, I always enjoy talking to you. You always find something to improve and to innovate and to adapt to what the latest changes in the economy. Thank you so much for spending an hour with us today on sharing the life story and what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, John, for having me. I really enjoyed it. Listeners, reach out to me. Also, join us on the I Must Ask You a Question show on Monday at 2 o'clock on the 3,000,000% page.
You heard it, y'all. Take a listen. Stay safe, stay blessed, and we'll be back. Tim, you as well. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.